So welcome everyone. We are Pro Beta Training. I'll be your host. My name is Tristan White. Welcome to our session this midday on the SAICA ethics self-reflection. And so we're going to try and answer 3 questions, and then we're going to hop into the actual self-reflection on our CPD platform. And so the first question we need to ask in terms of the SAICA CPD self-reflection is, what is it that we need to reflect on? And so there are 3 things within the category of ethics. So we know we have to reflect on ethics, but what within ethics? And so we have the 3 subcategories being personal, business, and professional ethics. And so there are a few more slides past the slide that will just unpack what those 3 sort of subcategories of ethics are about. So you can then refer to that a little bit later. We'll, of course, make these slides available for you. So we need to go and reflect on those 3 subcategories in terms of when. So in other words, how often, the frequency of our reflection, how often do we need to go and reflect? And so from SAICA's perspective, they haven't given us a definite number. They haven't said you have to reflect every or once a year or annually or every month or every quarter. And so the encouragement is to reflect as much as is possible, because if we think about the concept of ethics, ethics is something that is inherent in who you are. So every day we challenged ethically, and so we have to make decisions. And in that way, every day sort of gives us an opportunity to reflect. And so we need to try and reflect as much as is possible. Then in terms of the how, so how do I reflect? So what does it physically mean to reflect? And then secondly, what can I use to inspire my reflection? So how I reflect, we basically have to ask ourselves questions. We must have to do like a self-test or a self-introspection where we go and ask ourselves how we would have reacted in a given situation. What would I have done based on my personal ethics? What would I have done based on my professional ethics? What would I have done based on my understanding of business ethics in a given scenario? And so we are asking ourselves some questions and writing down our thoughts. That's how we physically reflect. Therefore, we need something to inspire our reflection. And so the thing that could inspire reflection could be maybe what's happening in the media, a newspaper article, maybe you've recently gone on some training, maybe you're studying on the side, maybe there was a case study, you're having a weekly meeting with your team. And so what you can then do through that, so you can have those opportunities be where you go and reflect. So we need something to inspire the need to reflect. And so there could be, for example, something happening in terms of the questions being asked about the profession or about a particular accountant. And so what would you have done in a given situation based on your understanding of ethics, professionally, business-wise, and personally? And so that's how we visualize how to do self-reflection. So as mentioned, we have the 3 subcategories, business, professional, and personal. And so here you can just refer the slide a little bit later. We also then have competencies. And so we reflect to make sure that we are in step or we are in line with the competencies, whether it's personal ethics related, business ethics related, or professional ethics related. We have some things that we have to aim for, that we have to accomplish, that we have to prove that we are in line with. So these are the competencies that we essentially have to aim for in us doing our self-reflection. In other words, we're going to go and make sure that we are in line with these things. We are doing these goals or these competencies for these 3 subcategories of ethics. Okay, so now I'm going to jump into the platform just to show you how you can go about practically documenting your self-reflection. So you'd be able to just click on the link to go there, but I'll show you an easier way. So let's say, for example, you're on the internet. So you've just opened up your internet browser. All you need to do is type in Pro Beta Training. And pretty much the first result that comes up, you can select. So once you've selected this first result, then you can click on the products and services. So if you're looking at the headings at the top, if you click on products and services here, you'd then be able to click on CPD reporting. And so in you clicking on the CPD reporting link, it then takes you to the welcome screen. This is like our splash screen. This is the first screen you'll see when you arrive on the CPD platform. If you have a profile, then you can click on login. If you haven't bought a profile or access or subscription to a profile, which I'll chat about a little bit later, you can then proceed to then go and buy access, so to speak, or buy a subscription by clicking on register. So I'm going to click on log in your profile. Then you're going to put in your ID number and your login password. Once you've logged in, you'll see all of the year reports that you've created. And so all you're going to do your self-reflection is you'd have to create a brand new report. So hopefully you are familiar with how to create a brand new report. So this is just basically creating a report per year, because we report in terms of CPD every year. And so I'm just going to choose a random year. Let's maybe go to 2023. And so I've already created the report. Let's go and update it by clicking on the Create Update Plan. And so you'll see at the top here, we've added some additional buttons. So if you are familiar with our platform, you'll notice hopefully these two new buttons, one called self-reflection and one called reflection report. And so to document your self-reflection, you'd click on the self-reflection button. So in so doing, what you're now going to need to do is you are going to have to choose a questionnaire. And so how the questionnaires work, so the questionnaires will will be the place where you can go and document your reflection. So how the questionnaires work are as follows. We have 6 questionnaires. We have one, so we have 2 per subcategory of ethics. So we have a business ethics and then open reflection, personal ethics and then open reflection, and then professional ethics and open reflection. And so the differences between the questionnaires are as follows. The one that doesn't have the word open reflection in the name would be based on the questions that we received from SAICA. So initially when they brought out the need to do self-reflection on your ethics, they introduced, or they gave us some standard questions to ask ourselves per those subcategories. So they are the standard ones. And then what we've gone and done was we've created almost like a blank reflection. And so to understand when we'd use what, when it comes to the business ethics, personal ethics, and the professional ethics ones, those ones, my opinion or my suggestion is that we need to go and complete those questionnaires at least once per annum, because those are based on SAICA's specific questions, which are generally in line with those competencies. Then we have the open reflection ones. And so the open reflection ones will encourage you or be the one that you can use week to week. So if I read a news article and there was some ethical issue, I can then go and document my thoughts in terms of if it's business ethics related. If the next week I went and I attended some staff meeting and there was a case study that was worked through, and I realized that this is challenging my personal ethics, I can go and choose the personal ethics open reflection and just document my thoughts. So the one questionnaire is based on SAICA's questions, and those ones you need to do at least once per year, my opinion. And then we have the open reflection, which facilitates a more frequent reflection. So in other words, you can do this every day, every week, every time there's a scenario. Okay, this one is a little bit more flexible. So let's take a look at, let's just add the business ethics one, for example. So you're going to choose that as the questionnaire, and then you're going to click on Start New Questionnaire. And then give it a second. Maybe more than a second. Okay, so we've just added the business ethics questionnaire, so the one that didn't have the word open reflection in it. And so within that one, it has some of the standard questions per SAICA's guidance. So SAICA had given us a document that had some standard questions per subcategory of ethics. And so my suggestion is do that one at least once per year. Those ones are in line with those competencies to an extent. I'm not saying it covers every single one, but it at least helps us head in that direction. So it asks things like, in terms of the ethical culture of your organization, and then some sub-questions. And so it's got several standard questions that come from SAICA's fact sheet. There was a fact sheet that they'd issued in April. Okay, so you have these questions. Okay, so I'm just going to type out a response and then leave. And then let's say you were reflecting on what's happening in our country at the moment with all the looting and the violence and stuff like that, and you felt that this is relevant in terms of personal ethics. So in terms of your own morals and values, what would you have done in the situation if you were maybe somebody that was in Durban or something like that? And so you can decide to go and do an open reflection. So I'm going to choose open reflection as the new questionnaire. And so you'll select it and then click Start. And then we have 3 simple questions in this questionnaire. The first one is, what's the date of your reflection? Because remember, we want to be able to reflect as often as possible. So daily, weekly, monthly, as often as is possible. Then in terms of our second question, it reads, what inspired this need to reflect? So in other words, what did you use? So the how question, what led to the need to reflect? So in other words, you could say something like, maybe the current affairs in South Africa. So I'm going to go and document here, current affairs. Let's say in South Africa, the looting and stuff like that. Okay, so let's say that's what's inspired the need to reflect on your personal ethics. And then the third question is, well, what are your thoughts? And so we've given some examples of what you can document to then illustrate how this affects your personal ethics. So based on what you're seeing in the current media at the moment, the current affairs, is this teaching you something new? How does this then affect your personal ethics awareness? Have you become casual? If you were somebody who was in a situation like that, would you do the same? And so we've got some examples of questions. There's some tips for you to then go and document your thoughts. So for example, we've said current affairs, the current looting in South Africa. So my thoughts around the situation and how this challenges my personal ethics would be, well, according to the Bible, it says X, Y, and Z, thou shalt not steal. So I would not be doing this. So something like thou shalt not steal, that's my personal view. And I would not be taking part, as it is against my personal ethics. Okay, so it comes with understanding the category of ethics. So if it's business ethics, that refers to how you interact with stakeholders. So you're not going to overcharge them and underdeliver, that kind of thing. Professional ethics relates to the code. What would the code have said for you to do in a situation like this with the looting, for example? And then personal ethics will be your own system of morals and values, how you live, how you were brought up, what your parents taught you. How would that inform how you would respond based on what's happening in the country at the moment? Okay, so those are the 3 questions. And so I just go and put in the date today, 16 July. And when you've completed that, you'll just hit save and exit. And that then shows whether we've completed the questionnaire or not. And so just going back to the questionnaires, as mentioned, we've got the 3 types. We've got the standard ones that have SAICA's questions, and then we have open reflection. So the open reflection is the one that you can use on a more regular basis. And so whatever is inspiring it, so if it's a news article, what's happening in the media, maybe you read something in a textbook, you can go and just document your thoughts. What did I learn about that? What's new for me? What did I not think about before? What would I have done in such a situation? And so once you've then selected all of those, you can then return to your plan. And then we have the second button, which is called reflection report. And so what this reflection report is going to allow you to do is to then turn the self-reflection into a separate PDF document. So you can print this to PDF by clicking on File and Print. And then all of the answers to your questions will pull through. So for example, we reflected on business ethics, and all of the questions, I'd only completed the first one. So I've got all these little A's here. And so if each answer would pull through into the report. If we were to scroll down to where the second questionnaire starts, here's the second questionnaire. So when did I reflect? Today. What inspired this need to reflect? What's happening in the country at the moment? And then the third question, my response was, how does this affect my personal ethics? Or how does my personal ethics relate to this? What would my personal ethics tell me about how I would handle the situation? And so you'll go and put that in, and then it prints it on your report, or pulls through to a report. And then you can print this to PDF by clicking File and then Print, and just choosing Microsoft Print to PDF. And so pretty much that takes care of how we can go and reflect. So we have those 3 categories of questionnaires. We've got the ones that are based on SAICA's standard questionnaire questions, and then we have the open one to facilitate a more frequent reflection. It's more open-ended. It isn't restricted. It isn't fixed in terms of the questions. You put down whatever your thoughts are. So if it's a news article, a weekly meeting, what you've learned from there, you can go and document it, whether it's business or personal or professional ethics, as you see fit. And then you can go and print that to report. And then if SAICA needs you to submit, you'll have that to then submit to them. And so the pricing hasn't changed. It's still the same. It's what it was last year. 50 Rand a month to subscribe as a monthly subscriber, all the way up to 600 for a 12-month subscription. And that pretty much takes care of it. So if you have any questions, you're welcome to now ask me. So you can send through your questions here in the little chat window on Zoom. So as you can see, you just log on, you go and click on the self-reflection button, and then you can go and select the appropriate questionnaires. You also have to think, what am I reflecting on? Is it my business ethics? Is it my personal? Or is it my professional ethics? And then you'll go and answer the questions per those questionnaires. Remember, the ones that don't have the word open reflection, those are the ones that you would then need to do at minimum once a year, because that is, I would say, those questions are quite fixed. They're quite rigid and stuff like that. It's not something you need to reflect on every day, every week. Whereas the secondary ones, open reflection, those ones facilitate more frequent reflection. And so SAICA wants us to reflect as frequently as is possible, because ethics is something that arises every day. We always challenge with ethics and making ethical decisions in every aspect of our lives, and so we can use that as something to reflect on. Okay. Ladies and gents, we've reached the end. Thank you very much. If you have questions, I will stay with you now. If you'd like a copy of the slides and then to do a little post-assessment to get a certificate, I'm going to go and upload it on the Akanani website. So that's just a website where we host our training sessions after we do them live. So all you need to do is to go click on Google and then type in akanani.coza, and then you'll be able to search for it as a lesson. So I'm just going to add it in as SAICA Ethics CPD Reflection. So you'll just type in something like that here, and then you can search for it. And then you'll add it to carts. It's obviously going to be free for you. And then you'll be able to watch the recording again. You'll also then be able to get a copy of the slides, and then you'll be able to go and complete the post-assessment and then get your attendance certificate. All right. Thank you, ladies and gents. I wish you all the best. Take care of yourself. God bless you and keep you. Goodbye.